Commander Nora stood at the observation window of Outpost 7 and watched 3 alien vessels descend through the atmosphere of the frontier world below. She had received the transmission only 6 hours ago. The Dominion was coming, and they were not asking for permission. She had read every report about them during her journey to this remote posting. They were a coalition of apex predator species who had ruled their region of space for 10,000 years. Every species they encountered fell into one of 3 categories: prey, servants, or threats to be eliminated. There was no fourth option in their worldview. Lieutenant Cole stood beside her, his hand resting near his sidearm out of habit rather than intent. He was young, only 28, but he had served in the Marine Corps before transferring to frontier duty. He knew how to stay calm when others might panic. The ships landed on the platform outside the station. They were beautiful in a terrible way, all sharp angles and predatory curves. Everything about them spoke of hunters who had never known what it meant to be hunted. Ambassador arrived in the command center moments before the airlock cycled open. She was 55 years old and had spent 3 decades negotiating with species across the galaxy. She had dealt with hostile powers before, but she had never dealt with anything like the delegation entered the station. There were 9 of them, 3 from each of the dominant species in the coalition. They came first, reptilian creatures who stood 7 feet tall and moved with the fluid grace of pack hunters. Their scales were dark green, and their eyes tracked every movement in the room with predatory focus. Behind them came the aerial predators with wings that folded against their backs like cloaks. Their feathers were black and silver, and their talons clicked against the floor as they walked. Their beaks were curved and sharp, designed for tearing flesh. Last came and Nora had to stop herself from stepping backward. They were massive, nearly 9 feet tall and covered in natural armor plating. They moved slowly, but every step shook the floor. These were creatures who hunted through brute force, who had never needed speed because nothing could stop them once they started moving. The leader of the delegation stepped forward. He was, and his scales were marked with patterns that indicated high rank. When he spoke, his voice was a low growl that the translation device rendered into clear words. "I am dominant of we have come to assess your species." Nora stepped forward to meet him. She was a foot shorter than the smallest in the room, but she did not look down or step back. "I am Commander Nora. Welcome to Outpost 7. Tilted his head, studying her. "You do not show submission. Interesting. Most species lower their eyes when they first see us." "Humans do not lower their eyes," Nora said simply. The leader made a sound that might have been amusement. "They also do not have claws, fangs, armor, or any natural weapons that we can observe. What exactly do humans do?" Ambassador stepped forward smoothly. "We adapt, we think, we cooperate. We would be happy to discuss humanity's qualities in a diplomatic setting." "There is nothing to discuss," said. "We did not come to negotiate. We came to determine what you are. Every species has a place in the natural order. Predators rule, prey serves. You have established colonies on the edge of our territory. We must know whether you are predators or prey." Cole spoke for the first time, "And if we are neither?" Every in the room turned to look at him. Eyes narrowed. "There is no neither. Every creature is one or the other. This is the fundamental truth of existence." "Fundamental truths have a way of changing," Nora said. "We would prefer to establish a relationship of equals. Trade, cultural exchange, mutual benefit." The leader made a deep rumbling sound. "Equals. The small, soft creature speaks of equals." He stepped closer to Nora, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his armored body. "I could crush you with one hand. How can we be equals?" Nora looked up at him without flinching. "Because strength is not the only measure of a species, and because if you crushed me with one hand, you would have to answer to the rest of my species. We do not abandon our own." Watched this exchange with growing interest. He had seen countless species cower before he had never seen one stand calmly and deliver a warning. "You are strange creatures," he said finally. "We have not yet decided what to make of you, but we cannot simply take your word that you are worthy of consideration. You must prove yourselves." "How?" Ambassador asked. "The proving grounds. It is where all species demonstrate their nature. You will send representatives to face the trials. If they perform as predators, you will be recognized as such. If they perform as prey—" He let the sentence hang in the air. "And if we refuse?" Nora asked. "Then we will classify you as prey by default, and your colonies will become part of the Dominion. You will serve us, or you will be removed." Spoke these words without anger or threat. He was simply stating what he believed to be an obvious truth. Nora looked at Cole, then at Ambassador. She thought about the 12-star systems humanity had settled, the millions of people who had built new lives on distant worlds. She thought about what it meant to be human, to have climbed from caves to the stars through nothing but determination and cooperation. "How long do we have to decide?" she asked. 72 of your hours. Then we will expect your representatives at the coordinates we provide." Turned to leave, then paused. "I will give you one piece of advice, Commander. Do not send your politicians or your scientists. Send those who know what it means to survive. The proving grounds do not care about words." The delegation left as quickly as they had arrived. Their ships rose into the sky and vanished, leaving only silence behind. Cole let out a breath he had been holding. "Well, that was terrifying." "No," Nora said quietly, still watching the sky. "That was an opportunity. They expect us to be prey. They have never been wrong about a species before." She turned to face her officers. "I think it is time we showed them what humans are made of." Ambassador was already reaching for her communication device. "I need to contact Earth. We have 72 hours to assemble a team that can change 10,000 years of assumptions." Nora nodded. "Then we had better get started." The transport ship carried 3 humans toward the coordinates they had provided. Dr. Price sat near the window, reviewing everything humanity knew about predator species psychology. She had spent 15 years studying how different species thought and behaved, and she understood something that most people did not. They were not evil. They simply could not imagine a universe that worked differently than the one they knew. Across from her sat Sergeant Owen Blake, a 34-year-old soldier who had survived 3 conflicts on colony worlds. He was not the strongest or the fastest soldier in the human military, but he had something more valuable. He never stopped thinking, and he never gave up. His commanders had selected him because they knew the proving grounds would test endurance more than raw power. Maya Torres completed the team. At 31, she was the youngest, but she had spent her entire adult life in wilderness environments. She could find food and water anywhere, build shelter from nothing, and read terrain the way others read books. If anyone could survive an alien hunting ground, it was her. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and the proving grounds came into view. It was not a station or a facility. It was an entire planet, carefully maintained by for thousands of years as a testing ground for species who wished to prove themselves. "Look at that," Maya said softly. The planet was beautiful and terrible. Massive continents covered in dense forests, open plains, mountain ranges, and every type of environment imaginable. All of it designed to be hostile. All of it filled with predators. An escort vessel guided them to a landing platform that floated above the atmosphere. When they stepped off their ship, they found themselves in a vast arena filled with thousands of observers. Representatives of every predator species in the Dominion had come to watch. Dominant stood on a raised platform, his scales gleaming under the artificial lights. "The humans have arrived," he announced. "Let us see what they are." Looked around at the crowd. She saw hunger in their eyes, but also curiosity. They had never encountered a species quite like humanity. They did not know what to expect, and that uncertainty made them uncomfortable. An official approached the human team. "You will be taken to the Crucible. It is a continent on the surface below, filled with the most dangerous creatures we have collected from across the galaxy. Your trial is simple. Survive for 10 standard days. If you survive, you will be recognized as predators. If you do not." She spread her wings slightly in what might have been a shrug. "What supplies will we have?" Owen asked. "Basic clothing, a single blade each, nothing more. True predators do not need tools to survive." Noticed something in the way the spoke. There was contempt in her voice, but also something else, a hint of doubt. "You have done this trial many times," said. "How many species have passed?" The hesitated. "In 10,000 years, 47 species have attempted the Crucible. 19 survived. And those 19 are now part of the Dominion. They earned their place through blood and strength." Owen nodded slowly. "What happened to the 28 who failed?" They did not answer. She did not need to. A young stood apart from the officials, watching the humans with intense interest. His feathers were lighter than the others, marking him as younger, and his eyes held none of the automatic contempt his elders displayed. His name was, and he had always questioned the certainties that others accepted without thought. The human team was escorted to a drop pod. As they strapped themselves in, Maya checked their equipment. 3 blades, basic clothing, nothing else. "Any last observations?" Owen asked. "The species all evolved the same way. They became the dominant predators on their worlds through strength, speed, or natural weapons. They have never encountered a predator that succeeded through different means." She paused. "They do not understand endurance hunting. They do not understand tool use beyond basic weapons. And most importantly, they do not understand cooperation between equals." "So our job is to educate them," Maya said with a slight smile. "Our job is to survive. The education will happen naturally." The drop pod launched. Through the small window, they watched the proving grounds grow larger and larger. Then they were through the atmosphere, descending toward the Crucible. The pod landed hard in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. When the door opened, the heat and humidity hit them immediately. The air smelled of growing things and decay, of life and death intertwined. Owen was first out, scanning the tree line for threats. Maya followed, already analyzing the plants and terrain. Came last, her scientific mind cataloging every detail. "Movement in the trees," Owen said quietly. "Something big, multiple somethings." They could hear it now. Heavy bodies moving through the undergrowth, growls and clicks that suggested communication. Whatever lived here, it hunted in packs. Most species would have run. They expected them to run. Running was what prey did. The 3 humans stood their ground. "There," Maya pointed. "That ridge to the north. High ground, defensible, with a water source visible at the base. If we can reach it, we can establish a position." "We walk," Owen said. "Controlled pace. Do not run, do not show fear. We are not prey." They moved together, 3 small soft creatures in a world designed to kill them. Above them, surveillance drones recorded everything. Thousands of watched with growing interest as the humans did something no prey species had ever done. They did not flee, they did not hide. They assessed, they planned, and they moved with purpose. On the observation platform, Dominant leaned forward. "Interesting," he murmured. "Most interesting." Beside him, felt something he had never felt before. Hope. Hope that maybe the universe was larger and stranger than they had ever imagined. The first day in the Crucible passed without incident. The human team reached the ridge Maya had identified, established a defensive position among the rocks, and began the work of survival. While Owen kept watch, Maya found edible plants and a clean water source, studied the local wildlife, learning their patterns and behaviors. The observers grew restless. They had expected drama, blood, desperate struggles for survival. Instead, they watched 3 creatures calmly setting up camp as if they were on vacation. On the second day, the released additional predators into the area around the human camp. Six-legged hunters with venomous fangs, flying creatures with razor-sharp talons, armored beasts that could charge through solid rock. The humans noticed them all, and then they did something they could not understand. They adapted. Owen studied the movement patterns of each predator type. He learned when they hunted, where they slept, which paths they favored. Within hours, he knew the crucible better than creatures who had lived there for years. Maya began crafting tools. Using vines and stones and wood, she created snares and traps, not to kill, but to warn. Any predator approaching their camp would trigger noise makers that alerted the team long before danger arrived. Did something even stranger. She began leaving offerings at the edges of their territory, small portions of food placed in specific patterns. She was communicating, telling the local predators that the humans were not prey and not competitors. They were something else entirely. "What are they doing?" an official demanded on the third day. "They should be fighting or fleeing. This is neither." Dominant did not answer. He was too busy watching. On the fourth day, Owen demonstrated something that shocked every observer. A large predator had been circling their camp, testing their defenses. Rather than confront it directly, Owen began to follow it. He followed it for 18 hours straight. The creature was faster than him. It could outrun him easily over short distances. But Owen did not need to be fast. He simply needed to never stop. Every time the creature paused to rest, there was Owen walking steadily toward it. Every time it tried to sleep, there was Owen, patient and relentless. By the end of the 18th hour, the predator was exhausted. It lay on the ground, too tired to fight, too confused to understand what had happened. Owen walked past it without a second glance and returned to camp. They had never seen anything like it. Their predator species were built for explosive speed and overwhelming force. The concept of hunting through pure endurance was alien to them. "He broke it," whispered. "He did not kill it. He simply refused to stop until it surrendered." On the fifth day, they released more predators. On the sixth day, even more. The forest around the human camp became one of the most dangerous places on the planet. The humans continued to thrive. Maya found food sources the designers had not considered. Insects, roots, fungi that grew in the shadows. She could find sustenance anywhere because humans had evolved on a world where finding food was the difference between life and death. Communication strategy began to show results. Some of the local predators started avoiding the human camp entirely. They had learned that these strange creatures were not worth the trouble. They were not prey, and fighting them brought no benefit. On the seventh day, they made a decision. They would send the ultimate test. The Crucible's most dangerous pack hunters were released near the human camp. These creatures had been collected from a death world on the far edge of the galaxy. They hunted in perfect coordination, communicated through subsonic signals, and had never failed to kill their target. Owen saw them coming, 12 hunters spreading out to surround the camp. There was no escape, no time to run. He stood up and walked toward them. Maya and watched from the camp. They did not call out or try to stop him. They trusted him. Owen stopped 20 meters from the pack leader. The creature was magnificent, all muscle and teeth and killing instinct. It growled, a sound that promised death. Owen looked directly into its eyes, and he did not look away. Among pack predators, eye contact was a challenge. The creature that looked away first acknowledged the other as dominant. Most prey species could not maintain eye contact with a predator. Their instincts screamed at them to submit. Owen had no such instincts. He was human, and humans had stared down lions and wolves and bears since the dawn of their species. They had learned that confidence could be a weapon as deadly as any claw. The pack leader growled again. Owen did not move. The seconds stretched into minutes. The pack grew restless, confused. Their leader was supposed to assert dominance. The prey was supposed to look away. But the prey would not look away, and slowly something in the pack leader's mind shifted. This was not prey, this was something else, something that did not fear them. The pack leader looked away first. The pack, they did not attack that day or any day after. The humans had established themselves as something outside the normal order of predator and prey. On the observation platform, the council convened in emergency session. "What are these creatures?" a demanded. "They do not fight like predators, they do not flee like prey, they simply refuse to accept the rules." Dominant remained silent, watching the footage of Owen's confrontation with the pack leader. He had ruled for 40 years. He had conquered 12 worlds, and for the first time in his life, he did not know what he was dealing with. Stood in the back of the council chamber, listening to the arguments. They were afraid, he realized. They were afraid of 3 soft creatures with no claws and no fangs. Not because the humans were dangerous, but because the humans had shown them that everything they believed might be wrong. Day 8 in the Crucible began like any other. The human team woke before dawn, checked their perimeter, and prepared for another day of survival. They had found a rhythm, a way of existing in this hostile world that felt almost natural. Above them, a very different kind of discussion was taking place. The council had reached a decision during the night. If the humans survived the full 10 days, they would not be recognized as predators. They would be eliminated. The council had concluded that a species capable of redefining the rules of survival was too dangerous to allow into the Dominion. Learned of this decision by accident. He had been observing the humans so closely that he had become invisible to his superiors, just another young watching the screens. When he heard the council's verdict, something cold settled in his chest. He made a choice. Using a frequency only could produce, he sent a coded message through the surveillance drones. It was a risk that could cost him everything, but he could not stand by and watch these remarkable creatures be destroyed simply for being different. In the Crucible, heard a strange sound from one of the drones overhead. It repeated 3 times, a pattern that could not be natural. She listened carefully, then turned to Owen with worry in her eyes. "Something has changed," she said. "I do not know what, but something is wrong." Owen looked at the sky, at the drones that had watched them for 8 days. "The council has made a decision about us." "How do you know?" "Because if they were going to accept us, they would simply wait for the trial to end. If they are acting now, it means they have decided we are too dangerous to live." Maya joined them, her face grim. "Then what do we do?" "We prepare, and we show them exactly why they should be afraid." On Outpost 7, Commander Nora had not been idle. For 8 days she had maintained communication with Earth, coordinating a response to the challenge. Admiral Lane had assembled a fleet at the edge of space, not to attack but to demonstrate. "They need to understand," Nora explained during a communication with the Admiral. "The respect strength. If we show them that threatening humanity has consequences, they may reconsider." "And if they do not?" Admiral Lane asked. She was 58 years old, a career officer who had never lost a battle, but she knew that a war with them would cost millions of lives. "Then we make the cost of fighting us higher than the benefit. That is how humans have always survived, not by being the strongest, but by being too much trouble to destroy." On day 9, the council decided to end the trial early. They ordered all predators in the Crucible to converge on the human camp simultaneously. It was a violation of their own rules, but the council had decided that rules no longer applied to these creatures. Owen had spent 8 days mapping the Crucible. He knew every path, every terrain feature, every advantage the land could offer. He had found a natural 1/2 kilometer from their camp, a narrow passage between 2 cliff walls where numbers would mean nothing. "They are coming," Maya said, watching the forest. "All of them, everything in the Crucible." "Then let them come." Owen led his team to the Remember the plan. We do not need to kill them. We just need to control the engagement." Maya had spent her free time preparing this position. Using nothing but natural materials, she had created a network of traps and obstacles. Falling rocks, hidden pits, noise makers that would confuse and disorient. The passage had become a maze that only the humans understood. The predators arrived in waves. Dozens of species, hundreds of individual creatures, all driven by the handlers toward the human position. And one by one they failed. The fastest predators triggered traps that blocked the passage. The strongest predators found themselves funneled into areas where their strength meant nothing. The pack hunters lost coordination in the chaos, unable to communicate with their allies. The humans did not fight with claws or fangs. They fought with intelligence, preparation, and perfect teamwork. Each knew their role without being told. Each trusted the others completely. After 3 hours, the assault failed. Not because the humans had killed everything, but because they had controlled every moment of the engagement. The surviving predators, confused and demoralized, walked to the entrance of the and looked directly at the nearest surveillance drone. She knew the entire council was watching. "You call yourselves apex predators," she said calmly. "You believe that strength and speed and natural weapons make you superior, but you have forgotten something important. The greatest predator is not the one with the sharpest claws. It is the one that never stops, never gives up, and never stops thinking." She paused, letting her words sink in. "On our world, we call it persistence predation. Our ancestors hunted creatures 10 times their size, not by being faster or stronger, but by following them for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. We evolved to outlast anything that tried to kill us. And we evolved to work together, to trust each other completely, to become more than the sum of our parts." Owen and Maya joined her. 3 humans, standing in a passage filled with failed traps and exhausted predators. "We are not prey," Owen said. "We never were. We are the most successful predators our world ever produced, and if you come for us, we will not run. We will not hide. We will simply refuse to stop until you understand what that means." At that moment, a communication alert reached the council chamber. Admiral Lane's fleet had arrived at the edge of space. 12 heavy cruisers and 40 support vessels, representing a fraction of humanity's true military strength. The message was simple. "We are here to observe. If our people are harmed, we will respond. We do not wish for war, but we will not abandon our own." On the observation platform, Dominant stood very still. He had conquered a dozen worlds. He had crushed every enemy who stood against him. And now, for the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to face a species that simply would not submit. Day 10 dawned. The humans walked out of the crucible on their own feet, uninjured, having turned the most dangerous place in space into their home. The trial was over. But the true test was just beginning. The council chamber was vast, built to accommodate thousands of representatives from every predator species in the Dominion. Today it held every major leader, every influential voice, every creature who had a say in the future of their civilization. And at the center of the chamber stood 3 humans. Owen Blake, Price, and Maya Torres had been cleaned and fed since their extraction from the crucible, but they still carried themselves with the quiet confidence of survivors. They had faced everything that could throw at them, and they had won. Commander Nora appeared on a holographic display behind them, her face calm and professional. Admiral Lane's fleet maintained position at the edge of space, a silent reminder that humanity was watching. Dominant rose from his seat at the head of the council. 10,000 years of history rested on his shoulders. 10,000 years of certainty about how the universe worked. And these small, soft creatures had called all of it into question. "You have survived the crucible," he said. "No one disputes this. The question before this council is what your survival means." A leader stood. "It means nothing. They cheated. They use tricks and traps instead of fighting with honor. This is not the way of predators." "And what is the way of predators?" asked. Her voice was steady, without anger or fear. "To throw yourself at prey until you succeed or die, that is not predation, that is stupidity." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. No one spoke to the council that way. "On our world," continued, "the most successful predators were not always the strongest or the fastest. They were the ones who adapted, the ones who learned, the ones who found new ways to succeed when the old ways failed. That is what we did in the Crucible. We adapted, we learned, we found a way." Owen stepped forward. "You want to know what humans are? I will tell you. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Predators hunted us. Diseases ravaged us. The climate shifted and changed and challenged us constantly, and we survived all of it." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of creatures who could tear him apart with their bare claws. "We hunted megafauna to extinction using nothing but patience and sharp sticks. We did not need venom or armor or wings. We simply refused to give up. We followed our prey for days, for weeks if necessary, until they collapsed from exhaustion. And then we ate them." Maya spoke next. "Your crucible was designed to test predators who rely on natural weapons. It never occurred to you that a species might succeed through different means. But humans have colonized every environment on our frozen wastelands where nothing should survive, burning deserts with no water, mountains so high the air itself becomes thin. We went to these places not because we were adapted to them, but because we refused to accept that they were beyond our reach." The chamber had fallen silent. Every predator in the room was listening. Commander's voice came through the holographic display. "The fleet behind me represents a fraction of humanity's true strength. We did not bring it here to threaten you. We brought it here to show you that we are not a species to be conquered or controlled. We will defend ourselves if we must, but we would prefer to find another way." "What way?" asked. "Partnership, trade, cultural exchange. You have knowledge and technology we lack. We have perspectives and capabilities you have never considered. Together, we could accomplish things neither of us could achieve alone." A elder made a dismissive sound. "Partnership with prey. You expect us to believe that you are our equals." "I expect nothing," said. "I only offer the truth. We are not your enemies unless you make us your enemies. And if you try to make us prey, you will learn what 10,000 years of successful predation have not taught you. There are hunters in this universe who do not look like hunters, and they are the most dangerous of all." Stood in the back of the chamber, his heart pounding. He had risked everything to warn the humans, and now he faced a choice: stay silent and survive, or speak and possibly die. He chose to speak. "The humans are right," he said, stepping forward. His voice was strong despite his fear. "We have spent 10,000 years believing that we understood the universe. Predators rule, prey serves. There is no other way, but these creatures have shown us that our understanding was incomplete." Every eye in the chamber turned to him. His gaze was cold and dangerous. "They did not defeat our predators through strength," continued. "They defeated them through something we have never considered: control. They controlled themselves, never giving in to fear or desperation. They controlled their environment, shaping it to serve their needs. They controlled the engagement, choosing when and where and how to face their enemies. That is a different kind of dominance, and perhaps it is time we learned from it." The chamber erupted in argument. Some demanded be silenced. Others agreed with his words. The certainties of 10,000 years were crumbling in real time. Dominant raised a hand, and silence fell. "I have ruled for 40 years," he said slowly. "I have conquered 12 worlds. I have never lost a battle. And today, I stand before 3 creatures who have shown me that everything I believed might be wrong." He looked at the humans for a long moment. "The trial was meant to determine what you are, predators or prey, but you are neither. You are something new, something we have no category for." He paused. "Perhaps it is time we created one." The chamber held its breath. Humanity will be recognized as equals to the Dominion, not because they defeated us in combat, but because they demonstrated a form of dominance we had never imagined. This is my decision. This is my command. Some in the chamber protested. Others remained silent, processing what had just happened. But's word was law, and no one dared challenge him directly. Owen extended his hand toward the dominant. It was a human gesture, one that did not understand. "Among my people, this is how equals greet each other," Owen explained. "Open hands, no weapons, no threat, just two beings acknowledging that they stand on the same level." Studied the gesture for a moment. Then slowly, he extended his own clawed hand and grasped Owen's. The chamber watched in stunned silence as the most powerful predator in the Dominion shook hands with a creature half his size. Felt tears forming in his eyes. He had hoped for this moment but never truly believed it would come. "I would like to visit human space," he said, "as an ambassador to learn more about your kind." Smiled at him. "You warned us. You risked everything to help us. You would be welcome among humanity." As the human team prepared to leave the council chamber, Maya looked back at the assembled predators. "You called us to prove ourselves. We did. Now perhaps you should ask yourselves a question. If 3 humans with nothing but knives could survive your greatest test, what could all of humanity accomplish if we worked together?" She did not wait for an answer. She did not need to. The humans returned to their ship, to their fleet, to their 12-star systems and millions of their kind. Behind them, the Dominion would never be quite the same. A crack had formed in 10,000 years of certainty, and through that crack, new possibilities were already beginning to grow. True dominance, the humans had taught them, was not about having the sharpest claws or the strongest armor. It was about control. Control over yourself. Control over your environment. Control over your own fate. And that was something humans understood better than anyone in the galaxy.